Welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast, where we talk with the people behind the current events and breakthroughs in brain implants in an understandable way, helping bring together various fields involved in neuroprosthetics. Here is your host, Ladan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast. Today's guest is Nathan Copeland, and actually I've known him for like a year and a half, something like that. We met at SFN 2018, so I'm a little bit embarrassed that I haven't had him on the show. So he is actually a neural implantee. He's a paraplegic, was in a car accident, 10 years ago or something like this. So yeah, he chose to have 4 Blackrock arrays implanted in his brain and was able to move and feel, sense, robot arms pretty much. And then all this culminated in a fist bump with then President Barack Obama in 2016. So pretty cool stuff. Since then, he's been talking and kind of getting awareness out that, this is a really good thing and BCIs are cool. And so this is a kind of a rare opportunity. I mean, not everybody gets to talk to somebody with brain implants. We've had a few on the show. Here's the next one. Here's another one of the big guys that you're probably going to see around. So hopefully you enjoy it. Okay, Nathan Copeland, pleasure to have you on the show. I'm a little bit embarrassed that I haven't had you on the show earlier because we met even 2 years ago, I think, 1.5 years ago.
Yeah, it's been 2.
2, yeah, at SFN. And you are a neural implantee. You have a Blackrock Utah electrode array implanted in your brain because, well, I'll let you describe it, actually.
I mean, technically I have 4 of them, 2 in sensory cortex and 2 in motor.
That's crazy. What's that feel like?
That's the can of worms question of, because obviously the sensory ones, they can use intracortical microstimulation to just kind of give me a little jolt in my brain, and there's the sensations I can feel are really electrode dependent. So some might feel like pressure or a tingle. Sometimes they're warm or feel like a tapping, all kinds of things, but each one can feel a little bit different and on a different place on my hand. So, I mean, it's really cool.
It doesn't correlate, though, with like if somebody is tapping, then it's not necessarily that you feel a tapping. It's just like it's not necessarily one-to-one for that, right?
Yeah, it's not really like real world, natural sensation analog, but, I've been doing this 5 years now, and these are basically, my new natural sensations, basically second nature at this point. But yeah, they are different than if someone was actually, tapping or touching me where I have intact sensation.
So do you want to talk about the story, how you ended up getting implanted?
Yeah, so in 2004, I was in a car accident and I broke my neck. So I'm a C5 quadriplegic. And I live near Pittsburgh, so I was in a Pittsburgh hospital, and Pittsburgh's big on research. And so one of the first things they asked me was, would you like to be put on a research registry? And I said, yeah, because you never know, what might come along. And, it was 10 years before, like 10 years later, I got a call and they were like, hey, there's this brain-computer interface study that we think you would be good for. Would you like to come in for a screening? I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. And I went in and I actually didn't meet their inclusion protocol. I have intact wrist extension, but not flexion. And in their protocols, they're looking for someone with, little to no hand function, significant hand function, and that was listed as significant. So it was another 2 years or so. I was doing another study that was being done by someone that was in the lab that was doing the BCI stuff. And he said, I think you would be a good match for this BCI study. Would you like to come in for a screening? And I was like, yes, I wanted to do this a couple of years ago and I couldn't. And they said that they had actually updated their inclusion protocols, and I'm kind of grateful that I didn't qualify for the first study because the first study just had some implants in motor cortex, and you could just move a robot arm and a computer cursor. And then when I went for the second screening, it was also incorporating the sensory cortex electrodes and the microstimulation, and so I feel pretty lucky that I kind of missed out on that earlier opportunity.
How much time actually had passed between those two?
It was about 2 years.
Okay. Very cool. So you got included into the study, and what was that like? Like what was the process for that?
So you go in, and there's all kinds of pre-surgery testing and MRIs and fMRIs and scans, and they give you a 23-page consent form, and there's all these risks and all that, and you have to go, is this worth it? Is elective brain surgery worth it? And there was never really a question about it in my mind. I knew that I would do it. I hadn't even read everything. I knew I was going to do it, and that worked out well for me, except my mother was really against it to the point where she wouldn't talk to me. And at the time, she was my primary caregiver, and she refused to take me to any of the appointments, and she didn't go to my surgery and all that. And luckily I had, my grandma was supportive, and my sister and a couple of friends, and so they took me through all those things. But I guess when it all came down to it, I had the surgery, and I was having a rough time in recovery, and my mom still came up and helped take care of me.
So why was that? Did she think it was too dangerous, or what?
Yeah, that's one of those things. I broke my neck, and I didn't have any head injuries. And then in 2010, I had a stroke, and I also didn't have any brain injury. And then, mom's worry, and she'd be like, you have your mind still. Why do you want to go and have brain surgery? And because mom's worry about the worst things that could happen, and I was basically dead set on doing it. And yeah, things were rough for a while.
So you had the surgery. Was it just one surgery, or was it many surgeries? And was it painful, or what was that like?
So I've had a couple surgeries related to this study, actually. I guess in 2014, I had an initial implant where they opened my skull and put in the 4 rays and screwed 2 pedestals to the top of my head where the patient cables would connect. And it was like a couple weeks in, we had all realized that the placement was not right, so they couldn't actually stimulate on the area that would, elicit sensation on my hand. And they kind of gave me 3 options, and one was to just give up then and explant, and one was to continue testing for a while, get what kind of data they could, and then explant, and the other was plan for a reimplant surgery. And my friend was actually with me at the lab that day, and on the way home, we were at a stoplight, and he said, "I already know what you're going to do." And I said, "Yeah," because I had gone that far, so, I wasn't going to just stop. So after that, I actually had to have a surgery to remove the pedestals first and let the scalp heal over, and then a surgery to explant and implant a new set of electrodes. So just a few.
Jeez, that's rough. And I remember talking to Ian about this, and he was saying he was having really, really bad headaches afterwards. Did that happen to you as well?
I never really had, I had pain. There's obviously pain. You have incisions, and you have, they clamp your head down with some screws that leave little indent things in your scalp, and it was all uncomfortable, and I actually don't do well on pain meds, so I just was on ibuprofen and Tylenol, and there would be times where I would have, more like, skin surface pain, that kind of pain, but never really any like real major headaches or anything. I did have, after my first implant, I had some issues where I was having like some anxiety, and it would kind of, send me into this kind of state where I was having trouble like speaking and kind of like aphasia, but they figured out it was just anxiety and nothing really wrong. But yeah, I had a kind of rough recovery after the first surgery, partly because they did have me on pain meds right after, and I really don't tolerate them well. So,
Wow, that's rough. So something, 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 and then you fist bump former President Obama. Do you want to kind of tell us that story? How that all led up to that?
yeah, that was in 2016. Obama had the White House Frontiers Conference, and it was spread across a couple buildings from the University of Pittsburgh and I think Carnegie Mellon, and it kind of gathered some of the researchers and people that were on the frontiers of some of these sciences. So I think there was some stuff from SpaceX, and there's some, other medical stuff. And then, since I was right there, it was just one day they're like, "Hey, do you want to meet the president?" or something like that, like something super casual. I was like, "Yeah, like, why would I not? Like, I'm not gonna be like, no, I don't think that seems like it's not very cool." I mean, maybe nowadays, but
Yeah, like, oh, I'm gonna watch a rerun of The Simpsons.
yeah, so I ended up, that day was kind of stressful because you have to come in the day before and they go over all this stuff. Like, you're going to stand right here, and he's going to come from this door, he's going to approach you, and you're all going to be standing in this order, and he's going to shake your hand first, and this, and then, then you'll shake the robot, he'll shake the robot hand, we'll do a fist bump, and there was press there, so we talked to them about some of that. But you get there early the day of, and there's practically no one in the building because, security clears it, and you're just standing there waiting. And whatever PR assistant guy that was, going around planning everything, he'd be like, "Just remember, he's just a person." And he'd be like a very like important person or something. He would add some qualifier, and I'd always think, if he's just a person, why do you have to add that extra pressure right there? But yeah, after waiting nervously, he just came over, and it was really nice because he was there and actually interested in the science. He knew about, the things that were going on there beforehand. He wasn't, just told, "Oh, go here and do this thing. It'll, look good on TV or something." So he came over, and he was just a person at that point. And so, yeah, that was very cool. Definitely one of the major highlights that will stick with me forever.
That's pretty cool. So how long had you been in the study by that point, and how much, I don't know, training and research? Maybe how many sessions did you have by then?
Ooh, actual session counts kind of rough to calculate, but it was 2 years in after my first implant. Well, 2 years after my first implant, so like a year and a half after my second one. And I go into Pittsburgh, 3 to 4 times a week for like 4 hours a time. I live like an hour and 20 minutes away. So I come in, I mean, yeah, somewhere they have a count of all these days, and I know I'm past 1,000 because I think we had a take for my 1,000th testing session like a year or a year and a half ago or something like that. So yeah, it's just what I do now. So I couldn't even be like, I've been that many times. But for training, it was actually, I mean, the very first time I was hooked up when we tried to control the robot arm, I could do it. It was extremely intuitive. I watch a virtual version of the arm move to some targets, and they look at the signals coming from the electrodes, and then the computer figures out it makes a decoder, and then I go from there. And obviously the very first times we were doing 2 degrees of freedom, like I could go up and down and left and right, and that worked. And then slowly we would add some more. We'd add the in and out and grasp, and sometimes we've done up to like 7 or 8 degrees of freedom. So, but as far as training goes, it was never something that I had to work for. It wasn't like, okay, one day I can only lift 10 pounds, and then I do it a bunch, and suddenly I'm pro weightlifter or something. It just went in and it worked.
So it wasn't maybe like as uncomfortable as like learning a foreign language where you're just like struggling, but it was just kind of, it just clicked one day, or is that kind of how you would describe it?
Yeah, I mean, since we did start slow with, just a couple degrees of freedom, and like a week or I don't know, maybe 2 later, we'd step it up by a degree or 2. There was never any point in time where I felt I had reached like a wall that I needed to work to get past. It was just a very natural progression that basically didn't take any extra effort on my part to do.
Okay. And then how did you improve? Like what kind of, I don't know, rate of improvement? I don't know how you necessarily measure it, but do you see a big improvement? And maybe like, for example, the first year did you improve much more than this last year, or how does it look like?
Yeah, it's tough to say. Obviously there's the natural progression, and then you do tasks like object transfer, where I pick up an object on one side of the table, I lift it over, the middle. I can't touch, a section in the middle, and I have to put it on the right side, and we just do that as many times as I can in 2 minutes. And that's one of those things that it didn't, I don't know, it's not like, it's like over time I did get better at the task, but it was kind of like I didn't notice that one day I was doing it better. It was just kind of, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but also it's kind of hard to compare, over the years, because I've actually used mainly 3 robotic arms over the years. I've actually used one more just a couple times, and a hand and a exoskeleton, but the 3 robots I've used are very different. So the first one was the MPL by APL, and then we moved on to the Luke arm by Deca, and that arm was just a little bit shorter, and the kinematics on it were different, so I couldn't move in the workspace the same, and it was slower, and so I think I still did better, but it was different. I don't know. And now I use a KUKA arm, which is a big industrial robot that is non-anatomical, which I really like, because it can move in the workspace the way I want it to. It's not mounted at the shoulder, and an arm mounted like that, when you go up, the hand points up. So if there was a shelf and you wanted to reach something off like a top shelf, you couldn't just move straight up and grab it. The fact that it was anatomical would stop you. And now there's like 6 or 8 joints in the KUKA. So if I want to go up, it can just go up and keep the gripper parallel to the ground. So I can just, grab something, put it back down. I think that'll be a necessity. I think someone needs to design more robots like that, but smaller, so they can actually be practical to use anywhere but the lab setting. Because I think sticking to something that's anatomical is really good for someone that's using it as a prosthetic, because there you want to be able to do the things the way an arm would work. But if this was in a house and someone like me, or some other condition that could benefit from this, it would basically be a necessity to be non-anatomical.
Yeah, with like industrial robots, you can like lift cars and, assemble, rocket ships and do kind of these unhuman things too.
That is one of my biggest reasons I like the Kuka, is it's fast. It is way faster than the others. So going back to the object transfer task, I started using the Kuka 3.5, 4 years, probably 4 years after I had started the study. And I had broken my object transfer record with it, just because it was, that much faster. It's so fast that they won't let me use it anywhere near as fast as it can go. It could knock a person over and they go, safety, safety. And I go, I want to do the best I can. So.
That's really cool. What about you? Why don't you design an arm?
Ooh. Yeah. Me, mostly because I'm not a robotics engineer. And it's easy to talk and say, it should do this and it should do that. But then actually designing it is a bit more complicated.
Be like, it needs more boomerang shooters. I don't know.
I mean, it has to be smaller and it has to do this and that, and it has to be lightweight and it has to be strong, and I want it to be black because it'll look cooler.
So do you think like a humanoid arm, even for the prosthetic ones, do you think that's less useful? Do you think it would be, even for those people, that it would be better to have a non-human one and just have some really cool, I don't know, laser shooting thing or whatever?
That kind of depends on, what kind of person is using this, because I'm sure there are people that would use it and they would want it to be exactly the same. They would want it to look, ideally they would want it to look the same as their original, function the same, feel the same, all that. And then there's probably this whole other category of people that are like me, and I would take more function over, looking like a human arm and being limited like a human arm. So things like, I don't know, if it was possible, 360-degree wrist rotation. There's no reason to limit that if you're using a robotic arm. I don't know, screwdriver attachment or something. I don't know.
That's really cool. And then before the episode, we were actually talking. You got some good news from the FDA recently.
Oh yeah, so both the FDA and the university have approved me to be able to participate in the study for up to another 5 years. So I'm really hoping everything keeps working properly for the next 5 years. And I don't know, like I look back to 5 years ago and I don't think I could have ever imagined I would have done the things I've done, gone the places I've gone, met the people, and had all these experiences. And then now I don't even know where I could end up in 10 years. And then, end up in 5 years and then be able to look back and go, I've been doing this for a decade. That would be amazing, but it's one of those things that I can't even actually fathom what it would be like.
What's been some of your favorite stuff so far in these last 5 years?
I mean, up until April of last year, I definitely would have said meeting President Obama was like the highlight. Like, I was like, I don't know if anything could top this. And then in April, I went to Japan, and I had been wanting to go to Japan my whole life. It was one of those things. My dad lived there when he was young because his dad was in the army, and I grew up on anime and, the video games and pop culture. And when I had my accident when I was 18, I kind of felt like at that point that dream was just dead, completely unrealistic. I didn't have a job, so I could never save the money because a normal ticket is expensive, and then I had to factor in I can't sit on an airplane seat for 16 hours in one position, so I would need the fancy first class seats that lay down flat, and I could get some pressure relief so I don't end up in Japan with stage 3 pressure ulcers or something, something that would be really bad. But there was a conference in Japan, NCM was in Toyama, and everyone at the lab knew that was kind of one of my dreams, and they know everyone who runs these kinds of things. And actually at SFN I met Lee Miller, who was organizing it, and someone from the lab was like, "Hey, do you still want to go to Japan?" I was like, "Yeah, why?" Like, "Oh, this is gonna be there." I was like, "Sign me up." And then I made a poster that I could present there, and it was on the comparisons between all the robots I've used, and the money situation was still a big issue. So I was like, okay, who knows people in Japan? And then someone here had a contact at the University of Osaka, and that professor, once I started emailing him, I was like, what can I do to help supplement this cost? And he kind of did a lot of legwork, and I'm really grateful that he set up a presentation for me to do at Osaka University, and one at a rehab gym in Tokyo, and then one at Keio University in Tokyo. And through that and some, other donations, they started a GoFundMe. I was able to pay for pretty much all of it. The only scary thing was I didn't know how much the university would be able to reimburse me. And so I maxed out 3 credit cards, kind of on this leap of faith that it would work out in the end. I kind of saw it as my one shot to get there. Then I got there, and it was amazing, and hopefully I can get back one day.
That's awesome. That's very good to hear. Did you like the speaking? Did you like going out and making the presentations and everything like this? Would you want to do that more often?
So the SFN we met at, that was 2018. That was my first real speaking in front of a room full of people. I was for the BCI users roundtable, and I have like normal everyday anxiety sometimes, and that I never liked speaking. In school when you have to give speeches and all that, I never liked the idea. It gave me a lot of anxiety, and I was really worked up before that presentation until about 10 seconds after it started. And I don't know, I've been told I speak well and I'm funny, and everyone liked it. But really, once I started, it wasn't too bad, and now each one I do is a little easier, and the more people I meet afterward that go, "Oh, I saw your thing and you're so inspirational," or "Now I want to get into this research," or "I'm doing this research and I find your insights really helpful." Through all that and just doing it more, I've kind of come to really enjoy it. Like, I kind of look forward to where's the next place this adventure could take me on.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, this is your kind of passport to, go to places like Japan and, whatever else, comes up. What's the next exciting place? Is it still Japan? Is that still the place you want to return to the most or go to the most?
Yeah, the number one on my wish list is get back to Japan and maybe, I don't know, spend some more time there, get to go to all the places I didn't have time to get to the first time.
Very cool. So a lot of people in the BCI community listen to this show, and your email is BCI Can Do Better. What does that mean, actually? I don't. I can take it both. I can take it two ways. Like BCI can improve our like paraplegic lives, or BCI. What's going on, BCI? You guys can do better. Like you're slacking. So which one is it?
Yeah, when I thought about that, it was kind of like you said, it had a couple meanings. First, it was, I looked at all these other tasks that people were doing with, like EEG or something, and I was like, oh, I can do that, and I can probably do it better. And it was, anything you can do, I can do better type deal. So there was that meaning, and then I kind of thought about it more, and it was I personally can do better. I always want to push everything forward, and then also the third meaning of the whole field can do better. Like I said, like we need better robots, that kind of thing. I like wordplay, so.
Is that maybe your recommendation for listeners, people in the field, like thing that's holding you back the most is the robots, or is there anything else that you're like, hey, I really wish this was improved, and researchers get off your butts and go fix it?
That is a tough one because there's so many different components that go into these systems. Like, I started off using the big bulky gray patient cables, and that was all they could connect to my pedestals. And now I'm currently using the Neuroplex E's, which are way smaller, and they just use a micro HDMI cable, so they're not weighing my head down, and I can actually just unplug the cable and wear them. I actually have been able to take them home just recently and use them with a tablet system. But I think one of the places I would really like to see something improved would be robots, because I really like using the Kuka, but I could never ever use it anywhere but a lab setting. It's huge. It could build a car, and so I can never have one in my house and do anything practical with it. But
They should hire you in a car manufacturing factory.
man, I want to see how fast I could actually control it, but I know I couldn't go anywhere near the speeds that a manufacturing line like that moves at.
That's funny.
It's actually insane.
That's crazy. Wow. And do you want to talk about the tablet system? I mean, we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording, but I thought that was really interesting too.
Yeah, so it's a medical tablet that I can use. It connects to a digital NSP. I guess it's the WNSP. They call it the wearable NSP, I think. But so it's just a little box that these HDMI cables plug into, and the box plugs into a USB on the tablet, and that takes place of, a tower with all kinds of amplifiers and, all that stuff that then goes to, a rack that has 4 more computers, and they have 6 monitors, and that's how everything gets ran. And now it's obviously not as powerful, and there's, some drawbacks, but at the end of the day, I still get to use, BCI at home and paint or play games or something. It's not the most powerful tablet, and it would be cool if I could just plug the system into my laptop, but there's all those FDA, safety things. But yeah, so.
Yeah, that's amazing stuff. I mean, I think that's probably one of the most exciting things for you is going to be like the computer, power, increases Moore's law and everything like this, and being able to have smaller and smaller things. So what used to take like a server and a rack and thousands of pounds of equipment is going to be something the size of a laptop, or a tablet or something like this. And that's just the progress of Moore's law, pretty much.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to start somewhere. I say it's not the most powerful thing, but it is doing a lot in a very small package. And, I would like to be able to plug it into the wall so I don't have to, be limited by batteries and stuff. But that's one of the things that, for safety purposes, I can't do that right now. But I'm hopeful that some of these things will get improved very soon.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, Nathan, this has been excellent. I've really enjoyed this. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to mention?
I have a YouTube channel. It's called BCI Can Do Better. On it, I have a playlist called My Cyborg Adventure, where I've just been collecting all these, videos that have been, made by the university and the news channels, and a couple I've uploaded. Probably a couple months ago, I uploaded one of me finally getting to play Final Fantasy XIV. It was a game that they'd always asked, like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to play Final Fantasy XIV. And 5 years later, I got to, and I uploaded a video of it, and it has like over 220,000 views. It's kind of nuts that it blew up like that, but
that's pretty crazy. Are you any good?
I am the best BCI Final Fantasy XIV player in the world.
Nice. That's funny. Yeah, that's really exciting stuff. Yeah, that one really seemed to have blown up. That's really cool stuff. And we'll link to all these videos in the channel in the show notes as well. So Nathan, thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. People can keep an eye out for you, I guess, at various conferences, or if they live in an exotic place that you might want to travel to, they can invite you. You can be one of their speakers.
Yeah, I'll basically go anywhere as long as I can get away with not paying a ton of money. I would love to see the world through this. That would basically be my only chance to get to a lot of these places.
Yeah. Kind of a blessing in disguise. It's going to be kind of weird. Anyways, we'll talk next time.
Yep. I'll see you around eventually, I'm sure.
After the call, we were talking, after the recording, we continued talking, and basically he was saying, he uploaded these videos and that he wants to upload more because, it's a really cool thing. But, they're kind of like, well, we don't want to. And he was explaining how it worked, and because a lot of, YouTube comments can be pretty toxic. So, they want to kind of do an explainer video or explainer graphic, and they're just like, no, we can't do that. So I don't know. Sometimes they're like, oh, we're scared. We're going to lose investors or, funding. And, academia has been doing this stuff for, 100 years or whatever. So, they don't want to change. So I don't know. I kind of see it both ways. I see it, like, hey, this can be very beneficial. It can be very good, like bring in more notoriety, more, eyeballs, like, hey, this is actually a thing, and people have brain implants, and it's helping people. But on the other hand, it could be bad, and it's like, hey, all your videos, are you playing video games, and why would we put money into this? And then Nathan was saying like, well, I got to play video games after like 1 year of research and 1 year of like work, so it kind of balances out. And he's not playing video games all day every day. Maybe that's just more interesting than the actual training sessions that he does. So just interesting stuff to think about. Hopefully you enjoyed this talk. Hopefully you guys can see him around, or like I said, invite him to your school. He loves to travel, but he needs assistance traveling. It's not very easy for him to travel sometimes. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that. See ya.
Hope you enjoyed the show and were able to learn something new, bringing together different fields in novel ways. Until next time on the Neural Implant Podcast.